Here's something nobody in the produce aisle wants you to think about. The average supermarket stocks somewhere between 30,000 and 50,000 products. Of all the edible plants on this planet, the thousands of fruits, roots, leaves, nuts, and berries that human beings have eaten for 10,000 years, your grocery store carries maybe 40 out of thousands. You might assume that's because the other ones taste bad, or they're hard to grow, or nobody wants them. All three are wrong. The plants I'm going to show you today are some of the most nutritious, productive, and delicious food sources on Earth. They've fed entire civilizations. They've kept people alive through famines, droughts, and supply chain collapses that would make our current grocery shortages look like a minor inconvenience. And the supermarket industry will never sell them to you. Not because they can't find them, because they can't profit from them the way they need to. A plant that bruises in 24 hours can't survive a 2,000-mile cold chain. A fruit that ripens all at once can't be picked early and gassed into fake ripeness in a warehouse. A nut that grows wild in your backyard doesn't need a brand, a barcode, or a $6.99 price tag. The industrial food system isn't built around what's most nutritious. It's built around what's most shippable, most shelf-stable, most photogenic under LED supermarket lighting, and most likely to bring you back next week. Most of what you're eating right now was selected not for nutrition or flavor, but for logistics, for uniformity, for the ability to look perfect in a plastic clamshell for 3 weeks, while containing approximately the nutritional value of slightly damp cardboard. Don't miss plant number 6. That one will make you angry. The tropical fruit that grows in your own backyard, the Pawpaw, Asimina triloba, is native to the eastern United States. It grows wild from Nebraska to the Atlantic coast. George Washington reportedly loved them. Thomas Jefferson grew them at Monticello. Lewis and Clark survived part of their expedition eating them. You have almost certainly never seen one in a grocery store. Here's the thing. Pawpaws taste like a banana, and a mango had a baby, threw in some vanilla custard, and then decided they were not leaving the forest. The flesh is rich, creamy, and dense with calories. A single ripe pawpaw contains roughly 80 calories, meaningful amounts of vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, iron, and more protein than almost any other temperate fruit, about 1.6 grams per 100 grams. That doesn't sound like much, until you realize an apple has 0.3 grams, and a peach has 0.9 grams. For a fruit, that's exceptional. A mature pawpaw tree, which can live for 50 or more years, produces 25 to 50 pounds of fruit annually once established. Plant a small grove of 3 or 4 trees for cross-pollination, and you're looking at 75 to 200 pounds of nutrient-dense, zero-input fruit every fall. So why isn't it at Whole Foods? Because a ripe pawpaw lasts approximately 3 to 5 days before it starts deteriorating. 3 to 5 days. No cold chain in the world makes that viable at commercial scale. You can't pick it early. It doesn't ripen off the tree the way a banana or tomato does. You can't wax it. You can't gas it. You can't stack it in a display under a $4.99 sign and expect it to look pretty on Thursday. The pawpaw doesn't fit the system, so the system pretends it doesn't exist. Meanwhile, in your backyard or the nearest patch of decent soil with some partial shade, this tree will grow, spread through root suckers, and drop one of the most nutritious fruits available in North America for free every single fall, without spraying, without fertilizing, without worrying about it even slightly. The supermarket can't sell it. That's your advantage. The immune system weapon hiding in plain sight. You've seen elderberry supplements, the little gummies, the syrup in the vitamin aisle, the 24 bottle of elderberry extract. That's essentially someone's backyard bottled up and marked up 3,000%. What the supplement industry is quietly harvesting. While you pay premium prices for the processed version, the elderberry bush itself is one of the fastest growing, most productive, and easiest to establish perennial shrubs on the planet. A single mature elderberry bush, Sambucus nigra or Sambucus canadensis, can produce 12 to 15 pounds of berries per year. Plant 3 bushes for cross-pollination and yield, and you're harvesting 35 to 45 pounds of elderberries annually from something that asked you for almost nothing in return. Here's what those berries actually do. Elderberries are one of the most concentrated sources of anthocyanins, the flavonoids responsible for antioxidant activity of any food that grows in a temperate climate. Per 100 grams of raw elderberries, you get roughly 73 calories, 7 grams of dietary fiber, and more vitamin C than a raw tomato. Studies on elderberry extract have shown measurable reductions in the duration and severity of influenza symptoms. This is not fringe herbalism. This is fairly well-documented pharmacological territory. So why doesn't your grocery store carry fresh elderberries? A few reasons. Raw elderberries contain sambunigrin, a cyanogenic glycoside compound that causes nausea and vomiting if consumed in meaningful quantities without cooking. That means they require preparation. And the liability of selling raw elderberries to someone who eats a handful straight is a legal nightmare nobody wants. The berries are also small, clustered in loose bunches, and ripen unevenly over several weeks. A logistical headache for commercial harvest. But most importantly, the fresh berry market doesn't exist because the supplement market does. It's far more profitable to dry them, process them into a syrup or capsule, and sell you a 60-day supply for $22 than to sell you a $3 bunch of fresh berries. In your backyard, this equation inverts completely. 2 or 3 elderberry bushes planted in decent soil, full to partial sun, give you a lifetime supply of something that costs a fortune in supplement form. They're fast, often producing their first real crop in year 2. They spread. They're cold hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And the flowers, which bloom before the berries arrive, make an elderflower cordial that is one of the finest things you will ever drink. The supplement industry is harvesting someone else's elderberries to sell to you. Plant your own. The vitamin C bomb that shipping destroyed. If you grew up in the United Kingdom, Eastern Europe, or parts of Scandinavia, you know exactly what a gooseberry is. And you're probably confused about why we're even having this conversation. In those regions, gooseberries are a standard garden fruit. People grow them, cook with them, make jams, fools, crumbles, and pies. They're as normal as a strawberry. In the United States, they're practically a folk legend. A 100-gram serving of fresh gooseberries contains approximately 44 calories, 4.3 grams of dietary fiber, and 27 milligrams of vitamin C, roughly 30% of the daily recommended intake, in a small handful of tart, translucent little spheres that nobody at your grocery store has any idea exist. They're also loaded with vitamin B5, B6, copper, and manganese. In traditional European herbal medicine, gooseberries were used as a liver tonic, a digestive aid, and a nutritional supplement centuries before the word supplement existed. A mature gooseberry bush, Ribes uva crispa, produces 8 to 10 pounds of fruit per year. It starts producing in year 2 or 3. It lives for 15 to 20 years with minimal care. It tolerates partial shade better than almost any other fruiting shrub, which means it thrives in the awkward spots of your yard where nothing else wants to grow. It's cold hardy down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit and has essentially no serious pest pressure in a home garden. Why isn't it at the supermarket? Ripe gooseberries last about a week at most. The thorned branches make commercial harvesting slow and expensive. And the US market never developed a taste for them the way European markets did, partly because gooseberries were federally banned in many US states. In the early 20th century, yes, actually banned, because they acted as a host for a fungal disease that threatened commercial white pine lumber operations. The ban was lifted state by state between the 1960s and 2000s. But the cultural memory of gooseberries in American gardens never recovered, which is the grocery industry's luck and your opportunity. Plant a gooseberry bush in the awkward shaded corner by your fence. Do essentially nothing for 2 years. And then collect free vitamin C bombs every summer for the next 2 decades. the antioxidant that science loves and retailers ignored. This one is infuriating once you understand what's happening. The Aronia berry, also called chokeberry, from the genus Aronia melanocarpa, has been studied more extensively for its antioxidant properties than almost any other small fruit. And the results are not subtle. Aronia berries register an ORAC value of approximately 16,000 per 100 grams. Blueberries come in around 4,600. Pomegranate juice, which has been marketed as a superfood for 2 decades and commands $7 a bottle, registers around 2,900. Aronia berries are not a little better than the superfoods you're already buying. They are 3 to 5 times more potent by measurable antioxidant activity. Studies in Europe, where Aronia has been commercially cultivated and researched for decades, have shown promising effects on blood pressure, blood sugar regulation, and inflammatory markers. And the bush itself is almost embarrassingly easy to grow. A mature Aronia shrub, which typically reaches 6 to 8 feet in height, will produce 15 to 20 pounds of berries per year. It starts bearing in year 2 or 3. It tolerates wet soil, clay soil, poor soil, partial shade, air pollution, and neglect with equal indifference. It's cold-hardy to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, with virtually no pest or disease problems in a home garden. So why is it invisible in American supermarkets? Because Aronia berries taste astringent, intensely tannic when eaten raw, puckering, dry, not something you grab and snack on while browsing the produce section. They're best cooked, juiced, or blended. And the American commercial food market has decided, seemingly once and for all, that if a berry doesn't taste great raw directly from the display case, it doesn't belong in a display case. The most nutrient-dense berry available in a temperate climate is being ignored commercially because it requires you to do something with it, while much less nutritious berries that look pretty and taste sweet dominate the entire fresh fruit section. Eastern Europeans have been making Aronia juice, wine, and preserves for generations. Polish farmers have cultivated it commercially since the 1980s. Poland is now the world's largest Aronia producer, primarily for the European pharmaceutical and functional food market. Meanwhile, you can plant a shrub in your backyard, harvest more antioxidants than you'll find in any $8 superfood juice, and the grocery store will never know it happened. The subtropical secret that ripens when nothing else does. Here's the problem with most backyard fruit production. It all ripens in July and August. Your apple, your peach, your plum, your berry bushes, they all sprint toward the finish line at the same time, which means you're drowning in fruit for 6 weeks, and then you have nothing from September through June. The Loquat Ariobotrya japonica has a very different opinion about when to ripen. In mild climates, loquats fruit in late winter to early spring. We're talking February, March, April, when the average grocery store produce section is a wasteland of out-of-season hothouse tomatoes and apples that were picked in October, when your garden has nothing going on. When fresh, locally grown fruit seems like a distant memory, that's when the loquat shows up. The nutritional profile is impressive. Loquats are rich in vitamin A, with a 100-gram serving providing roughly 76 micrograms of retinol activity equivalents, which is unusually high for a fresh fruit. They also provide potassium, manganese, dietary fiber, and a meaningful amount of pectin, the soluble fiber associated with cholesterol management and gut health. The flavor is a cross between a peach, an apricot, and a mild plum, with a juicy, slightly floral quality that is addictive. A mature loquat tree, which grows to around 20 to 30 feet if left unpruned, or can be kept much smaller with light pruning, produces 50 to 100 pounds of fruit per year in a warm enough climate. It starts producing in as few as 3 years from a grafted tree. So why isn't it in your supermarket? Because the fruit is extremely delicate. A ripe loquat begins to deteriorate within days of harvest. The thin skin bruises easily. The flesh is soft. No commercial variety has been successfully engineered to survive 10 days in a refrigerated truck without arriving, looking like something unfortunate happened to it. The Japanese have cultivated premium varieties for centuries and sell them domestically as a luxury fruit. In parts of California, Florida, and the Gulf Coast, Loquat trees grow everywhere, in backyards, along sidewalks, in parks, and most of the fruit falls to the ground and rots because nobody knows what to do with it. If you live in USDA zones 7 through 10, you can grow a loquat. It's an evergreen, so year-round green foliage. It's a beautiful ornamental tree. And in the dead of late winter, when the grocery store is asking $4 for a mealy imported peach, your loquat tree will be dropping fresh, fragrant, delicious fruit with absolutely no help from you. The most nutritious green nobody will touch. I warned you about this one. Stinging nettle, Urtica dioica, is what happens when a plant is so nutritious, so productive, and so structurally incompatible with commercial agriculture that it effectively vanished from the modern food conversation, despite being one of the most densely nutritious leafy greens available anywhere on Earth. Let's start with the numbers, because they are staggering. Per 100 grams of cooked stinging nettle leaves, approximately 42 calories, 6.9 grams of protein, 2,900 micrograms of beta-carotene, 498 milligrams of calcium, 57 milligrams of vitamin C, and substantial amounts of iron, magnesium, potassium, and vitamin K. The protein content alone should stop you. Most leafy greens are nutritional water held together by cellulose. Spinach, marketed as a superfood for decades, contains about 2.9 grams of protein per 100 grams raw. Cooked nettle delivers 6.9 grams. On iron, nettle delivers more per serving than red meat, on a calorie-for-calorie comparison. European nutritionists studying nettle have called it one of the most nutritionally complete plant foods available in a temperate climate. And it grows everywhere, like a weed, because it is one. In the wild, stinging nettle colonizes disturbed soil, forest edges, riverbanks, and the neglected corners of any property where the soil has some nitrogen and moisture. A planted nettle patch spreads steadily through rhizomes, meaning you plant it once, manage its boundaries, and harvest it indefinitely. Fresh spring growth, which is the most tender and least sting-prone, can be harvested continuously from April through June in most temperate climates. Blanching or cooking for even 60 seconds completely neutralizes the sting. The result tastes like a more complex, mineral-rich version of spinach. Greeks have eaten it in spanakopita-style pies for centuries. Italians use it in pasta fillings. Austrians make nettle soup. The English used it as a spring vegetable for hundreds of years, before the country decided vegetables were unfashionable. Why is it not at the grocery store? You cannot harvest it mechanically without triggering a liability problem that no insurance company will underwrite. It wilts aggressively within hours of harvest. It requires cooking, and the American commercial produce section has committed itself to the fiction that all vegetables should be raw snackable. It spreads aggressively, which means it can't be contained. In a monoculture field without constant inputs, and a weed that gives you 6.9 grams of protein per 100 grams, for the cost of tolerating a patch in your garden, has no place in a system that profits from your dependence on packaged protein powder. If you have a corner of your yard where you're willing to let something spread, plant stinging nettle once. It will be there forever. Every spring, when it pushes up its tender new growth, you'll be harvesting one of the most nutritionally dense greens on the planet. While your neighbor pays $7 for a bag of baby spinach that is 94% water. The forgotten fruit that was once more famous than the apple. There is a fruit that was so important to ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern civilization that it appeared in Greek mythology, was used as a wedding offering to Aphrodite, and was likely the original golden apple described in various classical texts. A fruit that Romans prized above almost everything else. A standard kitchen staple in virtually every country, with a temperate climate through the medieval period. That fruit is the quince, and most people under 50 have never tasted one. Quince, Cydonia oblonga, looks like a lumpy, fuzzy pear. It's yellow when ripe, with a floral perfume so intense that a single ripe quince left in a room will make the entire space smell extraordinary within hours. The flesh is hard and astringent raw, but when cooked, roasted, baked, poached, or made into a preserve, it transforms. It develops a deep rose-pink color and a flavor somewhere between apple, pear, and rosewater, with a richness that no commercial fruit product can replicate. Nutritionally, quinces are an excellent source of dietary fiber, vitamin C, copper, and potassium. More importantly, they are one of the richest sources of pectin of any fruit, making them historically the premier setting agent for jams and jellies. The word marmalade comes from marmelo, the Portuguese word for quince. A mature quince tree produces 50 to 150 pounds of fruit annually. It starts fruiting in year 3 to 5. It tolerates poor soil, dry conditions, and cold temperatures down to -15 degrees Fahrenheit. Minimal pest pressure. Almost no care once established. A single quince tree also produces fruit that keeps for 2 to 3 months in cool storage without any processing, making it one of the better long-keeping fresh fruits available in a temperate garden. Why has it disappeared from commercial agriculture? It's inedible raw. The grocery store model is built entirely around the idea that you can walk through the produce section, pick something up, and eat it on the way home. Quince requires cooking. It requires patience. It requires you to actually do something with it. In the attention economy of the produce section, where every item is competing for your impulse purchase, a fruit that needs preparation loses. It also doesn't photograph well on the shelf under commercial lighting. It's lumpy and fuzzy and smells intensely floral, which is wonderful in person, but doesn't translate to a supermarket display case, next to the glossy apples and perfect pears. The people who grow quince treat it like a secret. They make quince paste, the Spanish membrillo, and eat it with cheese. They make quince jelly that sets perfectly without added pectin, because the fruit does all the work. They bake whole quinces with honey and cinnamon, and wonder why everyone else is eating mealy supermarket pears. Plant one quince tree. You will wonder why you waited. The vitamin C content that makes an orange look like a participation trophy. Sit down for this one. C. Buckthorn Hippophae rhamnoides is a thorny, deciduous shrub native to the coastal and mountainous regions of Europe and Asia. It produces small, bright orange berries that are so nutritionally dense they are difficult to describe without sounding like you're making it up. Here are the numbers. Per 100 grams of C. buckthorn berries, you get somewhere between 400 and 800 milligrams of vitamin C, depending on variety and growing conditions. The commonly cited average is around 600 milligrams. An orange, the vitamin C standard by which every other fruit is measured, contains approximately 53 milligrams per 100 grams. C. buckthorn has roughly 12 times the vitamin C of an orange per gram. Vitamin C is only the beginning. C. buckthorn berries also contain vitamin E at concentrations higher than almost any other fruit. Vitamin K, a rare form of omega-7 fatty acid called palmitoleic acid, that is exceptionally uncommon in plant foods. Carotenoids at levels that explain why the berries are so intensely orange, and a range of flavonoids associated with cardiovascular and inflammatory health benefits. The seed oil and berry oil derived from C. buckthorn have been used in Russian and Chinese cosmetic and pharmaceutical applications for decades. The plant itself is essentially indestructible. It grows in sandy, rocky, nutrient-poor soil where almost nothing else survives. It fixes nitrogen, meaning it actually improves the soil it's planted in. It tolerates temperatures from -43 to +104 degrees Fahrenheit, is drought-tolerant once established, and a mature bush can live for 20 to 25 years. Female bushes, and you need one male for every 4 to 7 females for pollination. Produce 15 to 30 pounds of berries per year once established. Why isn't it at the supermarket? Because the berries are sour. Ferociously, aggressively sour with a fatty, oily quality from the omega-7 content that makes them unusual to eat directly. They're best as juice, mixed into smoothies, made into a syrup, or blended with sweeter fruits. That processing requirement eliminates them from the raw, fresh berry aisle entirely. The thorns also make harvesting difficult, and commercial mechanical harvesting typically involves freezing the entire branch and vibrating the berries off, not a technique that translates to the fresh produce section. In Germany, Russia, China, and Scandinavia, sea buckthorn products are a standard supermarket item in the juice and supplement aisles. The berries are commercially cultivated at scale across Central Asia and Europe. In North America, the plant grows easily in USDA zones 3 through 7. The shrub is available from specialty nurseries, and awareness of its existence among home gardeners is approximately 0. Plant 4 female bushes and 1 male. Do nothing. In 3 years, collect more vitamin C than you will ever need from anything. The fruit that ripens after the frost, so it can outlast your food supply. We're ending with the strangest one, and the one that most directly exposes the logic of the supermarket model for what it is. The Medlar, Mespelis germanica, is a small deciduous tree that produces brown, apple-shaped fruit, with an unusual biological property called bledding. Bledding is a process by which the fruit, after being exposed to frost or cold temperatures, undergoes internal fermentation that converts its starches into sugars and its hard flesh into a soft, custard-like texture. Unripe medlars are inedible, hard, astringent, and bitter. Properly bledded medlars taste like a spiced apple butter that developed a complex, winey depth all on its own, without any human intervention. The fruit doesn't ripen in summer. It ripens in October and November. And the bledding process, which begins after the first hard frost, means it reaches peak edibility in November and December, when almost nothing else in a temperate garden is producing anything at all. A mature medlar tree produces 30 to 60 pounds of fruit per year. It starts bearing in 3 to 4 years. It's cold hardy to negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It has virtually no pest or disease problems, because almost no commercial cultivation of medlars exists, which means the commercial pest pressures that plague apple and pear orchards never developed around medlars. It grows in almost any soil and is a beautiful ornamental tree even when not fruiting, with deep green summer foliage, large white flowers in spring, and spectacular autumn color. The fruit, once bledded, keeps for several weeks at cool temperatures, and the flavor, dense, rich, spiced, almost date-like, is unlike anything available in a supermarket. Why does the supermarket ignore it? Because you have to wait for it to rot slightly before you eat it. That is not a sales pitch that works in a produce aisle. The entire supermarket produce section is architecturally designed around the visual language of perfect, unblemished, bright-colored fresh fruit. The medlar, brown and slightly wrinkled after bledding, is the direct opposite of that visual language. It looks like something has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. It has finished becoming what it was supposed to be. The medieval English ate medlars as a standard winter dessert fruit. They appeared in the writings of Chaucer. They were grown in kitchen gardens across Europe for centuries. They vanished from commercial agriculture in the 20th century, not because they stopped being delicious, but because the visual standards and logistics of modern food retail made them impossible to sell. A medlar tree in your backyard produces a unique, complex, delicious fruit in the dead of autumn, when your garden has given up, and the supermarket is selling you out-of-season imports at luxury prices. The grocery store cannot sell you a medlar. Plant one anyway. Here's what these 9 plants have in common, and this is worth sitting with. Not one of them is difficult to grow. Not one of them requires special equipment, unusual expertise, or significant ongoing effort. Every single one has been grown in home gardens, kitchen gardens, and small farms for centuries or millennia. The industrial food system is not optimized to feed you well. It's optimized to sell to you efficiently, Those are not the same thing. They have never been the same thing. A backyard or even a patio with containers can produce pawpaws, elderberries, gooseberries, aronia, loquats, nettle, quince, sea buckthorn, and medlar. It can produce food that the largest food retail infrastructure in human history will never offer you. Not because they couldn't, because they won't. You don't need a farm. You need a plan, some patience, and the willingness to plant things that don't fit on a supermarket shelf. The best food in the world never did. Plant something real. Do it today.